right next to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute and their nuclear testing and research department, including all the very large buildings, including rocket testing facilities that were assigned to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. This was not just a lab for lab rats with beacons. They were actively testing rockets. Nuclear experiments were taking place here. And they were built right next to the Kummersdorf proving grounds, the huge military testing area, in a dense woods, so dense that it's rather hard to navigate without compass, GPS navigation, and it is littered with various ordnance from hundreds of years of testing. The first real steps towards space travel originated here, with a small bunch of amateur rocketeers similar to other groups around the world. Yet it was here that the German military had tested munitions for hundreds of years and would develop some of the most sophisticated weapons designed during the Second World War. The remains of the rocket test stands still remain here. The first glimpse of a military proving ground here we see in 1798 on a Prussian map of Berlin, Exerzierplatz der Artillerie, some 70 to 60 miles from the city of Kummersdorf, outside the capital. For hundreds of years, weapons, bunkers, targets, rockets have been tested here. And after the Treaty of Versailles, where Germany was no longer allowed a modern army, some secret testing and development could be done here. However, by the same treaty, rockets were allowed. Thus, the German army took a keen interest in them, and many of them were tested and developed here. And thanks to rocketry, it generated so many advances in other related fields, electrics, chemistry, metallurgy, and so on. That same year, gyroscope-based controls, perhaps the most critical invention for the future rocketry, entered the realm of aviation technology right here. In the spring of 1930, Captain Walter Dornberger was assigned to the ballistics and munitions branch as a deputy to Kaptein von Hossig. Dornberger was a veteran of artillery from World War I, and he had a doctorate in engineering. Dornberger proposed the establishment of a rocket testing facility at Kummersdorf. He began searching for rocket scientists with potential other than hobbyists, and the first contract went to the Science for Space Travel, VFR, and their rockets flew regularly from 1932. Von Braun joined the team at Kummersdorf late 1932, as did many other German rocket scientists from the civilian world. The first rocket test stands were of three variants, of the engine W, water-cooled series, and the first attempt of live firing was on December 21, 1932. It ended with a major explosion and severe damage to the facility. The first small water-cooled engine successfully developed a thrust of 140 kilograms for 60 seconds during its initial firing in January 1933.
We're currently on the roof of one of the old workshops. Remember, all this was new and they had to build everything, but they had room and the underground tunnels and rail networks here, and you had huge buildings. What's interesting is you had connecting tunnels that must have been built before the war, because, well, they started here before the war. Was ist das?
Das ist sehr interessant.
Ja. Was ist es?
Kannst du mal filmen?
Ausguckpost oder? What is this? I mean, this looks like this looks like security. You would stand down here and you could look above, but it really doesn't. You don't know what this is? It's behind the workshops. And we are in a Sperrgebiet, inside a Sperrgebiet. So Sicherheit, kein Grund dafür. One of the things you guys need to appreciate is this is a generally undocumented, because after the war the Russians took over, locked it down, and after that the whole area was just pretty much sealed off, except for explorers that would sneak in. And this has been a testing, Kummersdorf was a testing facility for 150 years. So there's a lot here. And then of course the Russians built this unsightly crap. Von Russen gebaut, ne?
Nee, umgebaut.
Umgebaut. So es war hier und dann Russen hat es umgebaut. Okay, so it was here and the Russians rebuilt it. And you will understand why we are sometimes circling a little bit, because the forest here is insanely dense. And I see beton over there and there, but I'm just gonna follow the expert and his dog, because he's been here before and I would get lost in 5 minutes, maybe 10. And of course you have mounds, protective earth, protecting something. I have light, lots of it.
That's nice. It's German.
What do you got here? Oh, so this is just a passage under the, oh, this is technical tunnel, or technical. And you see the weatherproofing. This used to be the roof that is slowly coming down, hanging on its rebar. I did not know I needed a walking stick. Ooh. Well, hello there. This looks interesting. Remember, they tested everything from weapons, projectiles, explosives here, and rockets. Jesus, I know what this is. I've seen this. I've seen this in Lower Silesia. Ich habe so wie ein Fenster gesehen in Lower Silesia, in einer Fabrik. Nicht weit von Ludwigsdorf. This was a test stand for rockets.
Yeah, I think so. They tested 1, 2.
You would observe from the windows on the side.
One of the things they would look for during these tests was the shape of the flame, as the jet directed where the rocket would go, and also it would need different thrust at different altitudes.
Oh yes, you need to adjust it for the altitudes.
Yes.
And then would they place the rocket face down and then exhaust up through the hole in the roof?
You need to find the exact shape, the mixture of the fuel and oxygen.
And all the holes and the pipes in the wall is leading the fuel into the rocket. There's a lot more of these test places. And here's the back of it. So the testing would take place in there. And then from here you would leak the fuel, oxygen, whatever, into the rockets. Very, very simple. And this is the other room. You see how the window has been bricked up on this side, and you have more of the holes to lead fuel in. Wow. And this is not even the big von Braun test site. What the hell is this? There's another. I found a thingy. This could be a similar building. That's big enough to drive into. And again, you have pipes everywhere on everything. And this is the test stand building. Down. Oh, look at this. The old testing facilities for rockets or rocket engines. This is a technical access, I believe. To the door that's bricked up out there. You would have all these cables that was running down here under the floors. And the Russians got a lot of ideas here from what the Germans were doing. All the stuff they confiscated at Kummersdorf. They went home and they researched it. And you know what? They're still using some of it today. And what worse is, it's better than some of the stuff we have in use today. Die Grundforschungsstelle sehen.
Ja, Grundlage, ja.
Die Grundlage. Now when we get to Lower Silesia, this is what I'm going to look for. Because if I see a rocket test facility in Lower Silesia, that will tell me a lot. And that will change things we thought we knew. There's the hole to the outside. So you would have fuel and things coming in from here for the rocket. And all these switches and electrical so you could guide it.
Just a reminder, this enormous area is divided up in two separate areas. One for the traditional weapons testing under the Army Research Center, where they would test artillery and Army rockets and other different things, munitions, and then that of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. We are still on their property now. Here, more untraditional weaponry and technologies would be tested, such as the nuclear research lab and the reactor we just came from, and quite a lot of other different unconventional, interesting technologies that they were tested here in this very large area. Not just the rockets, they also had, well, the sonic death ray.
Die töten durch Schallmaschine.
Die was? Die Toten, was?
Töten durch Schall. Killing by sonic.
Oh, wirklich?
Ja.
Die hast du probiert? So, hang on, they had the sonic weapon, they tested it.
They actually did build and test this machine, and there are still remnants of it, if only we could find them. Like I said, it is a large area, and we will be looking for a while, but I'll see if I can't bring it to you one of these days.
Munition oder Triebstoff? No, wirklich nicht. There's nothing in there. And then things got bigger. Okay, you were talking.
What I was talking about.
The parabolic
Mirror of the Sonic, yes. And next to it there are some remainings of a tank and some pipes. And so I think they produced with hydrogen some mini explosions and amplified them with the mirror to kill some people by overpressure in the blood vessels. The soldiers, I think.
Naja, es ging nicht durch die Druckwelle, sondern durch die Frequenz.
And while the adults are conversing over how and where the death ray worked and where it was, I wanted to have a look at this smaller rocket test stand. This was built in the early 30s for one of the A2 and A3 engine tests.
I've seen this before. I've seen pictures of this. What is this?
In my video I have this.
You do. That's probably why I've seen it.
Yeah.
So this is for rocket test stand as well.
Here you see the combustion chamber duct. This was for liquid-fueled rocket testing.
What he's saying is we need to get going.
That's definitely sucking. And then they smashed the spinning car and the God cockpit.
Ah. This sucks in air to the underground.
I think so.
I mean, why else would it?
Maybe for liquid air, for compressor stations.
Well, I know where we're going next time. There's the tunnels. Yeah, this is an air venting tower that'll vent. And here's another. I mean, clearly you see how the pipes are angled. You pull in air. And then over here you have more tunnels that are leading to this test stand.
This must be the compressor station.
Oh yeah?
There are some sockets, and when you look at this, and that's a huge isolation around it. So I think it's cooled or liquefied air.
Yeah, this is all bark, or not cork, cork insulation.
Some plastics, there's fabric inside. Ah.
That makes perfect sense.
So they suck in air and the sucker goes to the compressor station, liquefied, goes under the level to the burning chambers and then burned with some fuel.
Of course, they would need liquid oxygen for everything that had to do with rockets. Oh shit. And this is bricked up down at the end. Of course. And this was all experimental. They were all working out new technology here. And this was still in Gottow, which was under the University of Kaiser Wilhelm. This was not yet, we haven't gotten to the army test stands. Dog says that way. Was da noch ein Teststelle? Or storage for... This could be the storage for the tanks, for the oxygen or whatever, Treibstoff. Yeah, you have holders. This is the Russian, and that was the entry to Gottow. And then, when we come from there, the old Russian building, now we go into Kummersdorf. Very slowly, trying not to get caught. Not that we're doing anything wrong, of course.
Clear.
No, very clear. So now we're going into the place full of unexploded munitions and the stuff where the guards won't go. So what is this very large thing I'm looking at? Was ist das denn?
Die haben hier russische Panzer hingestellt, Panzerplatten, Armory.
Ja.
Also, und haben das dann aus nächster Nähe mit ihren modernsten Geschossen beschossen, um zu sehen, ob es durchschlägt, wie die Wirkung der Waffen ist.
This is a bullet catcher.
Und das ist der Catcher, ja genau.
Yeah, you see the shrapnel from penetrating whatever it was they were shooting at, or missing, like here. You would think they almost deliberately fired at the building. But this was interesting for the Russians to find after the war, because all the German testing results were here. And of course, somewhere down there was a large cannon, or a small cannon. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's small, and it's full of dirt. This is not dirt, this is coal.
And behind the dirt is the Reichsbankgold.
Oh, by here? Oh, good.
So this is a catch for projectiles.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, there was a cannon, I don't know where, but they shot inside this dump, and then maybe here are some projectiles.
It used to be sand.
It smells like coal, huh?
It does smell like, I mean,
I don't know what it is. Some slag, or...
They wouldn't shoot projectiles into coal. That's, would they?
No.
That seems like a very bad idea.
Coal will burn.
Are you wearing a watch? No? Okay, so there's metal on that side. Okay. That's interesting. What is that? This... Ah, there you go. A piece of a shell. Is that the ring of a...
Yeah.
What the hell's the camera? Oh, there you go. Yeah. So we can go dig shells out of the hill if we have nothing better to do for a very long time, and it'll be a very dirty job. You want the metal detector?
Yeah, I have one.
You have one?
Yeah.
Ah. Good deal. Here it is. Okay, this is extremely heavy for a small piece of metal.
Oh yeah, that's wrong.
What is this, an 88? Should be. Hard to say what this is. It was. Depleted uranium shells were tested here, and this is not one of them. This could also be a little 37. Yeah, this is more like a 37.
distinctive area. It's not large, 55 or so.
I know. I mean, that's why I always said, well, I'm tired of asking for permission when I can just go do it.
Huh? Look at this. A winter frisbee.
Oh wow, that's the bottom.
Here's the sweet spot. Oops.
That could be a nice ashtray.
Mm-hmm. You're a non-smoker, huh?
I smoke cigars. It's not really smoke. Cigars is not really smoking. So this is where you would fire from. Munition storage, maybe?
Or cameras?
Yeah. Of course you needed the telephone. And the hole. And I'm sure we can find pictures of this with a gun in it. It's so nice out here. Ah. A square hole. The foundation for a flak tower. I mean, they would have tested them and tested the cement as well, wouldn't they? Here? There would be no reason for a flak tower here, though.
Yes, here was a flag facility, but maybe it's an observation tower.
Well, there was a tower. Yeah, you get lost out here, you have no idea where you're going.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the woods there's a house. What is it? Dog leads the way. Big favor. Good boy. I'm sorry, good girl. So I'm looking at 4 houses that looks identical. One of the eternal problems with being out here in Kummersdorf in the middle of the woods is there's tons of structures that we have no idea what was, and I'm not entirely sure we could find out. But it'll be a lot of research when we get home to find out what some of these were. And of course, projectiles are everywhere.
Labor oder Werkstatt.
Aber mit die Raketenauswicklung.
Ja, für Motoren, Raketen.
Ja. Aber da die kleine A1 und A2,
Ja, kleine
war.
Raketen, ja. Für die großen nicht.
We're some 300 meters from the largest test stand here, and as you can clearly see, well, you can't see it. So whenever you drive through a piece of woods or forest, you gotta wonder what you can't see. Oh, those, yes.
When they are very raw from glass or so, they're very expensive.
I know, they're all ceramic.
Maybe Russian, huh?
I don't think it
too
could
new.
easily
It's
be
a
German. Is that Russian?
Zeichen.
That's triangle? I think that's...
Maybe. Or we. D? Maybe.
It looks familiar. There's a... well, it's obviously whoever made a manufacturer's mark, but...
One from the audience.
We shall see. Little V there, yeah. Was this... porcelain markings I am not yet a specialist in. And when I say not yet, I'm not expecting that I ever will be. And then there are things sitting out here. I'm guessing this is for fire. I think it's been there for a while. Huh. How am I going to get that onto the plane? And for those of you who really want to know, there's no detonator on here, so it is somewhat safer. It doesn't mean you need to make the foundation for your campfire. Just Könnte auch 10,5.
Nein, das ist mehr. Das ist
Mehr? 12?
Das ist 15.
15. Respect the fact that it's there and it's pretty and it's in one piece and new or old?
Ruski, PF, 3300 picofarad.
This area is absolutely enormous. And even if you, looks like the trees here are not very dense. Here's the large test stand.
It's dense, but it looks
We walked right around it, we didn't even see it.
almost no dead wood.
So that's the big test stand. Yes. And here's a piece of metal. Shrapnel?
No,
No.
poison.
Corona? No, what is this? This is look like shrapnel hits. Wow. I think they tried to blow this up. I'm seeing things that look like shrapnel from detonations. There's an underground part. Did they try to blow this up at the end of the war? You think that they used it for target practice?
Rockets, yeah.
And this was the large test stand, rocket test stand.
This was the large test.
This is the place where von Braun he was testing before he went to Peenemunde.
Yes. So here we have tracks, and you think when weather is sweet, then they open the doors. There must be an inner door and an outer door.
This built 38 and 39. There was a big accident here. Three of the scientists die.
Really?
And then it's never used at 39.
And after that they moved to Peenemunde.
Yeah.
So what was the accident?
Rocket engine is blowing up.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that is where the explosions come from. Because
Yeah.
it literally blew up.
Yeah. The tests done for aggregate 3 or 4, I
or
don't know.
four,
Yeah.
Yeah, because clearly explosives was at work here.
So hier was eine Montagehalle. Also sie haben die Raketenmotoren zusammengebaut, nicht die ganze Rakete. Nicht? Und dann wurde der Motor, du siehst hier, auf Schienen rausgekommen. Und dann wurde der hier verankert. Und dann hat man den hier gezündet. Und durch diese ganzen, da waren Panzerglasscheiben überall drin, hat man dort Kameras installiert und diesen ganzen Versuch gefilmt. Und geguckt, wie das funktioniert.
Dass das näher für Leute darin sein.
Ja,
viel
genau.
gefährlich.
Und hier ist noch ein unterirdischer Beobachtungsstand.
Und das ist auch von der Explosion, von der Unfall? Oder ist das später?
Wahrscheinlich ist es später, weil die Russen hier auch noch rumgespielt haben.
Ja. Natürlich.
Ja, ist verschüttet, aber es gibt hier noch, also auch noch unterirdische. Auf jeden Fall, als diese Explosion passiert ist, hat man hier nicht mehr weitergearbeitet.
Okay.
Ja.
Warum war da ein Untergrund? War das nur für Schutz oder für
Ja,
Material? Oder?
ja, für Gasleitungen und alles Mögliche.
Das ist ein Düse? Was ist das? Wir haben einen im Wald gesehen. Was ist das? Was ist ein Schluss für eine Schlange?
Verschluss für ein, ja, sieht aus wie ein Ventil, ne? Hier,
Ja.
ein Hebel. Ja. Das ist ein Benzintankdeckel.
In 1939, Hitler went back here to Kummersdorf, where he witnessed a test right here at the Test Stand West. They tested a rocket with a thrust of up to 1,000 kilograms and an almost completed A-5 rocket on the stand as well. However, he was not particularly impressed with what he saw and removed rocket research from the priority of weapons list in 1940. However, a few weeks later, when Göring visited the facility, he had a very different reaction and saw the potential that liquid-fueled rockets could make in the war effort. Test Stand 5, constructed in Peenemunde, was an exact copy of this, the largest test stand at Kummersdorf. And given that all the test stands at Peenemunde was destroyed after the war, this makes this a very important building. The only other test stand was the one we visited in Austria, which is quite significantly larger and was designed for the testing of V2 rocket motors. These two test stands are the last legacy of what began the journey towards space, and it began during the Second World War, and it started here at Kummersdorf, the small rocket that weighed about 20 kilos.
This was the test stand, the largest test stand in Kummersdorf. They had a little armored glass in here with cameras installed, and you would wheel out the rocket from in there, or the rocket engine only, of course. And this is where they tested. Sverre von Braun tested all the rockets leading up to the A4. In 1939, there was an accident here where 3 scientists were killed when one of the rocket engines exploded. And you could also imagine how much fuel, there'll be fuel tanks and many other things that will be stored here of various chemicals. So if one thing explodes, it all explodes, and it was not used since. Some of the shrapnel damage here is from the Russians bombed it after the war, used it for target practice. And there is an underground. Well, for cables, there's not just a little bunker there. These are all the rail tracks then piled up there. What an amazing building. Well, this is the first step towards the conquest of space. It's amazing how one could imagine the noise of testing a V3, V4 rocket engine here in this location. And back here, you had viewing ports where a camera was positioned to look at the jet exhaust and how to regulate it. And I would imagine this would have been a test room. You still have cables sticking out of the ground here. You had wood in the walls where you would have radios and things placed just like in the bunkers. Obviously there was not a tree at that time. I would imagine there would have been a metal roof, judging from the attachments over there and the fact that it's missing. The Russians probably took it because of the metal. And we have all the rubble laying here on the ground. That probably is part of some of that roof. And here you would have armored glass where you could see the tests. And once again, if I find viewing ports like this in Lower Silesia, see here the glass, the armored glass would have been placed. You had these heavy bolts that would be bolted onto, heavy doors. This has been a fairly decent sized building. And this looks like it would have been a generator. Power supply to run the equipment. And it all came to an end in 1939 when one of the rocket engines exploded. But of course, at that time, Peenemunde was almost up and ready, and this was no longer needed. Remnants of the armor that would be inside the glass. What a place. I would imagine this could have been where cameras were located.
On the right you can read Ivan Gottow Wiesna. Yeah.
Over there is foundations of a building. There, this foundation of a building. So these were the support buildings that was surrounding the test facility, which obviously you would have to have some of. This was not just a house, because it says there was actually metal sticking out of this house. So, now this is a fairly thick wall. With ceramic pipe holders. Puppy dog. pieces of buildings everywhere. Power station? It's not very big, of course.
It is a fascinating area to walk through, as so many different munitions and rockets, from solid fuel to the whole A series of rocket engines, was tested here in these various buildings. However, after the war, the Soviets took a lot of it as reparations, and German scrappers scrapped quite a few of the buildings for their metal. So it has been a bit of a puzzle to try to figure out exactly what was what, because the Soviets also took the existing plans with them. Here we see one of the smaller test stand buildings that fortunately still exists.
Hier waren Gasflaschen drin für den Brennstoff.
Okay. Of course you had gas. Ooh. Let's see a good picture. Maybe.
Hey. Die ganze Strahlkraft von dem Raketenmotor, die ging in diesen Tunnel. Guck, die wurde hier geteilt, ja, und ging dann zur Seite raus.
Oder? Ah.
Und hier oben war ein Dach drüber. Das konnte man nach da hinten wegfahren und runterklappen.
That's very cool.
Und hier gab es eine Schiebetür und ein Dach. Das Dach konnte man da rüberfahren, Schiebetür aufmachen. Hier war ein Stahlgestell mit dem Raketenmotor, Treibstoffleitung hier rein.
Und dann war die Kamera da.
Und da war die Kamera und die Messinstrumente.
Das war eine große Bildung dann. This is really cool. So you had a sliding door in the front, a sliding roof that could slide. You would have the rocket sitting here, and it would vent down right there on the triangle that we've seen at Peenemunde. That would then vent the gases to both sides, with the cameras in there and the fuel and gas on the side. This is a cool little building. Now we know if this was a rocket engine that would have a thrust of 1.5 ton, you will go home and figure out which one it was. We can do the math. And then here is where the blast from the rocket would be propelled up and away. And you can see how it actually angles upwards here. I'm guessing the Russians did this because there's some serious damage to this. This is a cool little building. And everywhere in the fourth floor there's something. There's a bit of a ruin sitting in there. It will take us a week to find all these things. Ja. Sieht ein Dinge. Although we are really close to the rockets, so probably not. That's a vision port. And there was a vision port in there. If they tested the rockets in there, this looks like it's facing that way. So this will be a way for people just to go in shelter.
For a non-scientist, maybe.
Yeah.
Scientists are in the building, non-scientists here.
And you have a little trench there. You have a large hole here. It could also have been bombed after, which is not exactly helping. And these are the Russian poles. Just for reference.
Kummersdorf remains a very important historical location because so many different weapons and tanks, rockets, missiles were tested here, specialty weapons, things that didn't go anywhere, but they were still a significant and important part of military and weapon research. So we'll continue to go back here as much as we can to document the various buildings and structures, try to obtain information on what took place here so we can show them to you, because one day, I'm afraid, they will all disintegrate or be gone. Sadly, like so many other historical locations. Behind me is Wernher von Braun's first test stand. Down the road is Dietmar's nuclear reactor. Over there is the Maginot Line and all its amazing forts. I'm visiting them all and I'm bringing them to you. So I really appreciate you like, follow, and share what I'm doing, trying to document all these important historical locations. And if you feel like you want to watch more pictures or documents that I use for these, go to lostbattlefields.com. And if you feel like helping me out with my travels, because gasoline and travel and airfare is expensive, my PayPal is there, protectionserviceint.com. You are more than welcome, but you don't have to. I appreciate all your support and all your help, and I love seeing these locations, and I love bringing them to you.